Chairman Capito, thank you very much for holding this, and also my regards to Ranking Member Whitehouse as well for this important hearing. And I look forward to working in a bipartisan way to be able to get all the members of the committee on these carbon sense carbon arrangements and programming, which is a win-win-win-win, right? It's great for consumers, it's great for the environment, it's great for farmers, it's great for bioproducers. It really is something that we need to continue to pursue, and I congratulate the state of North Dakota on your great progress on already. It's also great, Mr. Kavanaugh, to have you here. Great to have a Husker, as we mentioned before, so thanks for taking the time to be a witness, and thank you to all of our witnesses for being here. Nebraska is actually the second-ranked ethanol state in the country, and I know the chairman knows this because of my service on this committee the last 2 years. She's heard me oftentimes talking about why I love this committee so much, because we get to talk about ethanol all the time. And ethanol is great because it saves consumers money at the pump, helps clean up our environment, and as mentioned, it's great for our farmers and ranchers. Nebraskan farmers benefit from the certainty of premium markets associated with the biofuel industry. So just as we're talking about, if you can lower the score, the carbon score for your ethanol, right, you can actually charge a premium for it. That's a good thing, right? That's the market at work. It's a fantastic thing. Carbon pipelines help add that premium to biofuels and biofuel markets by lowering that carbon intensity even further than through this carbon sequestration. Nebraska and other Midwestern states stand to benefit greatly from pipeline projects like Tallgrass Pipeline, which originates in Beatrice, Nebraska, and terminates in eastern Wyoming. Tallgrass has the capacity to do 10 million cubic tons of CO2. That's like 2 million cars being taken off the road. The potential for growth of this carbon storage industry is just another reason why we ought to be doing E15 year-round and implement the renewable fuel standard on time. Ensuring the development of carbon storage infrastructures requires compliance with different agencies and regulatory schemes, and I would certainly agree with my colleague from Ohio when he said he agrees with the primacy of states, because again, having been a former governor, I know what a great job our Department of Environment and Energy did in that primacy. In Tallgrass's case, the state of Wyoming was responsible for issuing the Class 6 well permit through EPA's Underground Injection Control Program. The Wyoming Department of Environmental Quality successfully did that. It's a huge win for Nebraska and the Midwest and neighboring states. So while I'm relieved to hear the Tallgrass project has that Class 6 permit, so many other projects have not had that same success. According to the EPA, only 8 Class 6 wells have been permitted. 161 are still awaiting that permitting, or still pending. And again, getting back to the ranking member's concerns, maybe this is one of the reasons why other companies don't jump in. If you've only got 8 Class 6 wells permitted and there's 161 waiting, why would I jump in on this, right? The EPA's got to get it going. This is just unacceptable. At the beginning of last year, Senator Fisher and I led a letter asking the EPA about Class 6 well permit approval process. Biofuel stakeholders have been waiting 33 months for a permit, despite the commitment from the agency that the process would take no longer than 24 months. I've actually got copies of those letters right here. And without objection, I'd like to submit these letters that we sent to the EPA in the response for the record. These delays and excuses demonstrate what we already know to be true, that the Biden administration was not serious about a holistic approach to clean energy and favored toxic Chinese-based suppliers for batteries. Second, state governments often have a better stewards of taxpayer dollars, as we've demonstrated by what's going on in New York or in North Dakota, and should play a more active role in the federal programming for implementation. Federal roadblocks for CO2 permitting stand in the way of leveraging every penny that we could be going to helping Nebraska farmers feeding and fueling the world. Farm country is struggling, and access to the biofuel markets supported by these Class 6 wells would pad producers' bottom lines. I'm encouraged by the bipartisan support from both Chairman Capito and Ranking Member Whitehouse and other members of this committee for the Use It Act. This legislation includes a language specifically to streamline the permitting process for CO2 pipelines. There are critical provisions in the Use It Act, like expedited permitting to review development of cases of carbon infrastructure. As Governor of Nebraska, I implemented Lean Six Sigma to be able to streamline our processes. For example, we were able to bring some of our permits down from 110 steps to 22 steps and cut the time to issuance from 190 days to 65 days. We ought to be looking for those same sort of answers in our EPA. Mr. Commerce, your work in North Dakota on carbon sequestration is impressive with regard to the Class 6. How have Class 6 well permitting been different from what would be in the USES Act's passage?
Well, as I mentioned, when you have Class 6 primacy like you do in North Dakota, and certainly Nebraska, I believe, has decided to pursue Class 6 primacy. The state regulator is able to evaluate these complex applications in a much more efficient manner. And we have a drastic comparison. On the federal level, it takes EPA 2 to 4 years to issue a Class 6 permit. The most recent ones were just the permit to construct, so that operator is going to have to turn around and actually apply for the authorization to inject, which is an unknown time frame. In North Dakota and Wyoming, who've both issued these project permits, North Dakota takes about 8 months to issue a permit, and Wyoming takes about 12 months on average to issue their first 3 permits. It's efficient. It's an efficient process. These are complex applications, but certainly you have a regulator that's able to work through that process in a more efficient manner.
Yeah. Thank you, Chairman, for being lenient with the time here, but I just want to say, as a governor, I wholeheartedly agree with your assessment of it, that the states can be much more efficient in getting this done. And again, for example, when I talked about that Lean Six Sigma process, we at the state, we can't change any environmental regulations. Is that right, Mr. Connor?
That's correct. In order to receive Class 6 primacy, your state program has to be as stringent as the federal EPA's program in protecting underground sources of drinking water.
Yes.
EPA recognized when they published the Class 6 rule in 2010, in the preamble of that rule, that states are best positioned to regulate and implement this program because they can enact a broader framework, and that's the framework that I was discussing, where states can regulate a project, they can create pore space unitization, and EPA is just limited to regulating the injection well. So EPA recognizes that the states are best positioned and suited to regulate this activity and to be able to do so in a manner that's more efficient. And the way we talk about it in terms of these regulatory frameworks is the state is really positioned to regulate from cradle to grave, and that's an important piece where the state can regulate the project. EPA has limitations to what their regulatory authority is when they're the implementation authority.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. I absolutely appreciate your answer there, because that's something that, again, as a former governor, I appreciate. Nobody cares more about having clean air or clean water in the state of Nebraska than Nebraskans. And that's why we do such a great job with the environment, and that's why we need this primacy. So thank you for your indulgence.
Right, thank you.